In the 1990s, the state of São Paulo witnessed a series of women disappearing in the southern zone of the capital. These disappearances escalated into homicides as bodies began to be discovered. Then, the person responsible for all the fear gripping the population was revealed: the Park Maniac, a serial rapist and murderer who preyed on women. The Park Maniac was responsible for a series of rapes and murders of women, whose bodies were found in areas near Parque do Estado, in the southern zone of São Paulo, one of the city's main green areas. Between 1997 and 1998, the criminal attacked multiple victims, many of them young and vulnerable, lured into the park under the false promise of a peaceful walk. The police investigation faced several challenges. Initially, the lack of leads and difficulties in profiling the criminal delayed solving the cases. However, in 1998, authorities managed to capture Francisco de Assis Pereira in the city of Itaqui, in the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul, near the border between Brazil and Argentina. The trial of Francisco de Assis Pereira drew significant attention from the media and the public. During the proceedings, shocking details about the crimes emerged. The defense argued that he suffered from mental health issues, but the prosecution maintained that he was fully responsible for his actions. Ultimately, he was sentenced to 268 years in prison. On September 13th, journalist Ulysses Campbell released a biography exploring the criminal's personality. According to the expert, Francisco Pereira could be released from prison in just 4 years. In his criminal records, the expected release date is August 2028. However, it's not that simple. There will be extensive psychological evaluations and psychiatric reports presented to the justice system to determine whether he poses a risk of reoffending, explains the author of the book, Francisco de Assis, the Park Maniac. Additionally, on October 18th, a film about the story of the Park Maniac will be released. Francisco was outgoing and highly persuasive, allowing his victims to talk about their current personal struggles, often conflicts in their relationships, so he could use this information to gain their trust and manipulate them. He primarily operated in the São Paulo metro system, especially on the lines connected to Jabaquara Station, where he approached his victims under the pretense of offering them a role in promotional campaigns for a major cosmetics company. His target selection was strategic, focusing on women who seemed emotionally distressed, those he described as sad and head down, appearing vulnerable and more likely to engage with a stranger. Before disappearing, he left only a newspaper and a note on the table. In the message, he expressed regret for leaving and apologized for his sudden departure. During the police investigation, after Francisco had left his job as a motorcycle courier, his former employer contacted the Department of Homicide and Personal Protection, DHPP, to report something suspicious. When the authorities arrived, the employer revealed a bizarre discovery: a bovine rib bone and an ID card embedded in the ceramic of a company restroom toilet, only found because the structure had broken. This evidence linked Francisco to his first known victim, Selma Ferreira Queiroz. Following this discovery, Francisco fled south, where he was eventually captured. When confronted by a DHPP investigator from São Paulo, he confessed to the crimes and even led the police to the locations of the victims' bodies, including Selma's remains, which had not yet been found in Parque do Estado at the time of his confession. Francisco de Assis Pereira went through several traumatic experiences in his life that may have influenced his behavior. According to reports, during childhood, he was exposed to inappropriate situations, which led him to develop a strong fixation on certain physical traits. As an adult, he faced complex personal relationships, including situations that caused emotional distress and confusion about his identity. Additionally, he experienced a deeply unsettling incident that left him with a lasting psychological impact and a fear related to his self-perception. He also went through a significant romantic disappointment, which deeply affected him. Before committing his crimes, Francisco displayed an aggressive side in his relationships. Taina, a person with whom he lived for over a year, reported experiencing physical violence from him, including aggressive behavior similar to what some survivors later described. Additionally, he suffered from a condition that caused discomfort, which reportedly led to frustration in his personal life. After being captured by the police, what shocked authorities the most was how someone without weapons could convince women to get on the back of his motorcycle and follow him into a secluded area, despite having just met him. Today, the convicted murderer holds a record for receiving the most letters in prison. He even married one of his admirers, though they later separated, with his ex-fiancée describing strange behavior and an unsettling personality. Francisco is set to be released in 2028 after serving the maximum 30-year prison sentence allowed under Brazilian law. However, renowned psychiatrists warn that he is likely to re-offend due to his irreversible psychological condition. In response, in September 2018, the Public Prosecutor's Office requested that the courts conduct a new psychological evaluation to potentially block his release. During interrogation, the Park Maniac stated that convincing his victims was easy. According to him, all he had to do was say what they wanted to hear. He showered them with compliments, introduced himself as a talent scout for a prestigious magazine, and offered them well-paid modeling jobs. He then invited them to a photo shoot in a natural setting, claiming it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, something predestined that couldn't be missed. Elisângela Francisco da Silva was 21 years old and originally from Paraná, Brazil. Coming from a poor family in Londrina, she had been living in São Paulo with her aunt, Solange Barbosa, since 1996. Due to financial difficulties, she dropped out of school in the 7th grade. On the day of her disappearance, she was dropped off at El Dorado shopping mall in São Paulo's western zone by a friend and was never seen again. Her naked body was found on July 28th in Parque do Estado. Due to advanced decomposition, identification was extremely difficult and only confirmed 3 days later. "I had hoped it wasn't her," her aunt said. On the day she vanished, Elisângela had told her family she would be back in 2 hours. Raquel Mota Rodriguez, 23 years old, had one major ambition: earning money to support her family, who lived in Gravataí, Rio Grande do Sul. On weekends, she often went out with 3 friends, but she never stayed out past midnight. On the evening of January 9th, at around 8 p.m., she left the furniture store where she worked as a saleswoman in Pinheiros, São Paulo's western zone. After getting off at Jabaquara metro station, just minutes from home, she called her cousin to say she had met a man who offered her a modeling opportunity in Diadema, a nearby city. "I told her she shouldn't go," her cousin Ligia recalled. "It was too risky to go with a stranger." "Yeah, I won't go," Raquel replied. But she never returned home. Her body was found in a wooded area of Parque do Estado on January 16th. Selma Ferreira Queiroz, 18 years old, was the youngest of 3 sisters and had dreams of studying accounting or computer science in college. However, her plans were cut short on July 3rd. That afternoon, she left her home in Cotia, a city in Greater São Paulo, to head downtown and handle the formalities of her resignation from a pharmacy chain where she had worked as a sales assistant. She never made it back. The next day, her sister Sarah received a chilling phone call. A man claimed Selma had been kidnapped and demanded a ransom of 1,000 reais, saying he would call back later that afternoon, but he never did. That same day, Selma's body was discovered in Parque do Estado. She was found naked, with signs of assault and severe beatings. Her shoulders, chest, and inner thighs bore bite marks. and she had been strangled. The last sign of life from Selma was a message to her boyfriend, saying she wouldn't make it home in time to watch Brazil's match against Denmark, but that she was on her way back. At 24 years old, Patricia Gonçalves Marinho had never shared with her family her secret dream of becoming a model. On April 17, she left her grandmother Josefa's house, where she lived, and never returned. Her body was discovered on July 28 in Parque do Estado, abandoned in a remote area. The only way authorities were able to identify her was through her clothes and jewelry, found next to the body. Like the others, she had been assaulted and strangled to death. In December 2000, during a prison riot, Francisco de Assis Pereira was wrongly reported as dead. However, after a series of conflicting reports, the prison authorities confirmed that he had survived. Despite being targeted by other inmates, the former motorcycle courier remained alive. The Park Maniac was sentenced to a total of 268 years in prison. However, Francisco claims that today he considers himself a normal person. According to him, he owes his survival to his faith and insists that his past actions were not his own will, but the result of a dark force. His wife, Juzara, whom he met through letter exchanges, spends her time trying to resolve his legal issues. Since 2001, Francisco has been transferred through several prisons in the São Paulo countryside. Currently, he is serving his sentence at Orlando Brando Felinto Penitentiary in the municipality of Yaras, where he has been incarcerated since May 22, 2009.